Hi, my loves. Welcome to the TRIBEvibe guided meditation series. So yesterday we had a snafu with technology. Our interwebs wouldn't let us be great. Our Wi-Fi was acting crazy. The microphone was acting funny. So because apparently clearly some gremlins was over here trying to mess with everything, I was like, you know what? We're just gonna do 2 episodes tomorrow and keep it pushing, right? The show don't stop. Well, I recorded it, but it was crazy. So we're just gonna redo yesterday's episode. So today we will be talking about right now, during this session episode of the series, we're gonna be talking about the benefits and the definition of like self-care and wellness, right? And then at 7 in an hour from now, after we get done with this one, I'm gonna come back on here again and we're gonna talk about tips on how to exercise self-care and wellness in your life. Okay, so we gonna knock them all out today. So y'all get ready with your pens and your pads. We're gonna be on here getting everything together. Okay, but before we start, you know what I want to tell you to do. Well, firstly, I want to say I'm happy that you're here. How has your week been? Happy Thursday. And then I'm going to do what we always do, is our social media thing. So I'm going to go and I'm going to click the like and share. Well, not the like button, but I'm going to go click the share button myself. And I want you to do the same thing. And I also want you to tag your accountability partner. I'm gonna ask you every week. So like if you feel a type of way about me asking every week, just be ready to execute. You know what I'm saying? Like understand what it is that I'm asking you to do, and be able to execute it. And that way you won't feel no type of way when I get on here and ask you, because I'm gonna ask you every week. So if you could tag your accountability partner, and then also, I always tell you to make sure you do your in-person socialing, and remember to tell your mama, your daddy, your brother, your sister, your cousins, your auntie, your uncle, and them about the TRIBEvibe, so that we can reach one, teach one, so that everybody who needs and can benefit from this information will have access to it. All right? Okay. That's it. That's the post. So let me finish sharing this. And look at everything cooperating today. Yesterday just must have been a fluke. I don't know what was going on. So anyway, all right, you guys ready to get into it? I'm going to try to speed it up because yesterday it took a little long for me to go through. Today I'm going to try to speed it up a little bit. That way we could be on time for our second session. All right, love. So we're going to give the definition first of self-care, and then we'll give the definition of wellness, because the two things are kind of synonymous, like they go together, but they have a little bit of a different definition. So I'm going to give them to you both, and then we're going to talk about it. So self-care is the practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being. Okay? So y'all know every time I get on here, I'm like, it's a very simple definition. They always simple definitions, because we don't talk about nothing crazy. We talk about how to work smarter, not harder, like we always do. And we talk about how to implement some things that are very simple that can be life-changing. So the definition of self-care is simple. The practice of taking an active role in protecting one's own well-being. Right? And then the definition of wellness is like optimal health and vitality. So, you use self-care as like the active part of making sure you manage your wellness, right? So, like I said, they go together. You can't really do one without the other. They go together. Like peanut butter and jelly. It's okay if you don't do them together, but it's way better. Way better if you do them together. Okay, I'm being silly because that ain't even. But anyway, okay. So when we talk about them, we talk about them in tandem, right? We don't talk about them. They're not mutually exclusive. There's really no way to be doing self-care without doing wellness. Be doing wellness without doing self-care. Okay, so that's how come when we ever talk about it, it's always self-care and wellness. Get all of it together. Okay. All right. So I know last week when we were talking about resilience, I know I told you guys that resiliency is like the culmination of a lot of different things, right? It's like the middle intersection of different things, and it means different things to different people. Well, self-care and wellness is kind of similar to that, where it's a lot of different things that come together that encompass you practicing self-care and you practicing wellness, right? There's a lot of things, the factors that go into it. So I'm going to list them off for you, and then we'll go and break them down so they can forever be broke. Okay? We finna say that every week, because me and Love Jones I gotta Love Jones for Love Jones. And I said this yesterday, and it still needed to be in here today. If you haven't seen Love Jones, you need to take a moment to go see Love Jones. It is a whole experience of a movie. The cinematography, the oh shoot, y'all, what's the word? I don't want to call it chorus, but like the now I'm thinking playlist. That ain't it, y'all. What's the word? The soundtrack that they play throughout the, like, it's just whew, the poetry. It's just a whole vibe. So if you have not seen Love Jones, go see it. I've seen it probably like 50 times, and I'll probably see it another 50 more in the next 30 years. Okay, whatever. I may watch it more than once a year. I'm not even sure. That might be a thing. I may probably even watch it more than once a year. Anyway, it's not the story. Story is that I'm going to say, we're going to break it down so it can forever be broke in an ode to Love Jones, because I love that movie. So anyway, y'all get ready for that to be every week. I made that decision yesterday. I made an executive decision. All right, so here's the list of things that intersect to, you know, grow this beautiful flower of self-care and wellness. Okay, you ready? So emotional, mental, physical, spiritual, intellectual, interpersonal, social, environmental, and financial. All right. Okay. All right, y'all ready to break them down? All right, here we go. Okay, so we're going to start with the first one, and they're not in the order I just said, because that ain't how I wrote them down. Mind your business. The first one is physical. So when we talk about, like, what is self-care, what is wellness in regards to your physical being, we're talking about things like, what do you eat? You know, do you exercise? One of the big things, and not even, let's stop there. I'm not saying eating and exercise are not big things. I'm not going to harp on them, because I know for facts that you have heard somebody harp on the importance of healthy eating habits and also healthy exercise habits. Everything looks different for everybody. There's really no one shape fits all. I know in regards to like medicine and things of that nature, they try to kind of, you know, go with what generally works for the majority of people, because they have to tell people kind of like a benchmark, somewhere kind of to measure what they're doing. So they kind of like, you know, just play the averages games and get somewhere in the middle. But everything looks a little different to everybody. At some point, you'll really start being very in tune, if you're not already, very in tune with your personal sense of health and like how your body feels. Because like, I mean, I can do something one day and my body will feel different almost instantly, and I can tell that it doesn't like the thing that I just did, right? It's my choice to keep doing the thing you don't like, but I can very much tell when I listen to my body. So I'm not gonna harp on eating and exercise, because y'all already heard that. So the third one is going to be disease prevention. And I think a lot of times we talk about disease management. We don't talk about disease prevention. And I had to get a PSA again, so don't nobody be on here trying to sue me. These are my personal opinions. You know, personal, not even of the brand. These are my personal opinions. But there are some folks out here that make a whole lot of money, and they will remain unnamed. They make a whole lot of money on getting you to do the things they want you to do after you have been diagnosed with the disease. Every disease isn't the same, but there are some diseases that are very much preventable and diseases that are reversible. So we need to make sure that we're also as cognizant of the fact that there is a huge thing that comes with disease prevention, because, you know, you got blood pressure all of a sudden, and now you having to do XYZ to manage your blood pressure, and you never had to do that in life, and you're going to have to make a whole lot of changes, right? It isn't that you just get to be like, oh, well, you know, I got high blood pressure. Some people do that, but the majority of people, you know, they actually implement whatever it is that comes along with the diagnosis. But you can implement changes prior to having a diagnosis that'll prevent you from getting there. Some people are more genetically predisposed to getting things and having high blood pressure. One of my best friends is, and it be kicking her butt, and she be trying to figure it out. But I kid you not, she has found a way to manage it without having to go and do the normal, typical route. So, you know, you put your energy where you want to. You can put it in after, or you can put it in before. So I want you to be very aware that you have the option to put it in before, to be preventative about things rather than reactive. Proactive rather than reactive. All right? All right. Okay, so the next thing when we're talking about the physical aspects of self-care and wellness is what I was saying earlier about knowing your body. And I just want to reiterate that, because it is imperative, and you will hear me say imperative all throughout this entire thing, it is imperative that you are the master of all of these different pillars of self-care and wellness. And it is imperative that you know your body better than anybody else. Because just like I said, something as simple as I was driving back from a trip the other day and I forgot my water bottle where I was at. And I was like, I was too far to go back and get it. Then I stopped and get gas and forgot and could have went in the gas station and got some water, didn't do it. And then it was like, I'm in the car like SpongeBob. Do y'all remember that episode of SpongeBob when he went to go visit Sandy and he didn't realize Sandy lived in the air and he went in there and got all crispy? That's kind of how I was feeling. So when all that was happening, you know, it was my body was telling me, you know, hey, we don't like when you just don't drink no water all day. We don't like that. And something as simple as that, you should be able to know those cues that your body gives you, because your body wants to stay at homeostasis. It loves the Goldilocks zone. It don't want to be too hot, don't want to be too cold. It wants to be just right. And so it is going to give you signals to let you know in one way or another that something you're doing is throwing it off. It's making it work harder one way or the other to bring you back to the middle. So it's going to let you know. So you need to be very much an expert of recognizing and noticing those cues when they happen. Okay? All right, so that's it for physical. So see, I'm moving today, honey. Okay, anyway, don't mind me. Okay, so yeah. So the next thing we're talking about on our pillars of self-care and wellness is emotional. So we talked about emotional health in different ways. You know, generally speaking, we're not talking about like the broad category of emotional health. We're usually breaking it down into little pieces. Like even last week, we're talking about resiliency. That is a big part of your emotional health. And so being able to exercise optimism. You know, we've talked about that. We had a whole week on being happy, and optimism is huge in happiness. You know, being able to see the silver lining. Being able to trust yourself is big. Having self-control and discipline. We talked about that. I can't remember what week it was that we were talking about discipline. But, you know, it's huge, because if you set a boundary for yourself or expectation for yourself, or even just like what we were talking about earlier about noticing those cues in regards to your physical health, that your body's telling you, hey, I don't like that, like do something different. You have to be disciplined to set that standard for yourself and exercise it. So that's huge for mental health, because you already know you get to breaking promises to yourself. It ain't too far before you start feeling the type of way. So anyway, also practicing grace. We talked about that quite a bit when we talked about our week on letting things go and being able to practice grace for yourself, for other people, for the situation. Additionally, therapy. I get on here, I don't think I talk about it every week, but when it applies, I apply it. I go to therapy every week, and I would encourage you to go to therapy if you've never gone. It is one of those tools that's in the toolkit, and I kid you not, some weeks I go, and I'm not sure what we're going to talk about when I get there. Some weeks I go, I'm like, oh girl, you needed to call me like 3 days ago. But it's really a life-changing experience when you get in with a good therapist. You're not always going to be able to be fortunate enough to find the person that just yings to your yang the very first time. I've had, well, 2 that like in my adult life that I talk to on a consistent basis. And the one I worked with initially, I loved her, but she wasn't as good for me as this current therapist I had. Who would have known? Right? I don't want you to just start bouncing around through therapists. You actually need to give them a try and, you know, be open to the process. But if you find yourself or have found yourself going to therapy and you're like, this just ain't working for me, the way that this person's talking to me or whatever, I don't feel comfortable talking to them about XYZ because they just don't get it, go find somebody else. There are a ton of resources that allow you to get discounted therapy and or even free therapy. You just got to go find it. Get on Google, use Google, okay? And then also, it never hurts for you to call and ask an office and tell them like, hey, I'm in this financial situation currently. I would like to get the services, but this is what I can pay. Or is there any like discount? Is there a payment plan I can get on? Call and ask. The worst they're going to do is say no. And then you could just call somebody else. You keep asking until you get the answer you want, okay? All right. So, the last thing is to make sure that you're having real conversations with yourself. Honey, y'all know I love me some Ayala Van Zandt. She has the best memes and like quotable moments ever. And for a while there, she kept saying, call a thing a thing. And I love that. And I still say that. But there's nobody else should have to tell you what's going on. There may be a person that comes into your life that is able to be a mirror for you, right? And so they may be able to make it easier for you to see. But you should never have somebody else coming in your situation and telling you, knowing more about what's going on with you than you know for yourself. And so being able to have those real conversations, she also, look, here I go again with Ayala Van Zandt quotes. She also says, like, tell the rock gut ugly truth. And I think that's big. You can't ever be too afraid, nervous, unsure, whatever feeling you want to have that prevents you from having those true conversations with yourself. You can't expect for anybody else to do it. You can't expect for anybody else to know you as well as you know you to be able to do those things. So I want you to make sure when we're talking about emotional health in regards to self-care and wellness that you are able to, if you don't do anything else, at least be able to have the truth conversations with yourself. Okay? All right. So in between emotional and intellectual, I kind of usually, if you hear me, I'll marry the two together and I just talk about mental. And so those are two branches for me. So I just giving y'all that so y'all can know if I'm talking about it later. And you be like, she ain't talking about no mental. If I ever am talking about mental, it's the combination of emotional and intellectual. Because our next one is intellectual. See how they went together? It's in order because I wrote it down. So don't, okay, whatever. So anyway, the next one on our pillars of self-care and wellness is intellectual. So, when we talk about critical thinking, it's good because I worked it out yesterday, so I don't have to do the long pause like I normally do. We're trying to work it out. I never want to make anybody feel judged when we're talking about these things. If you feel uncomfortable, I'm okay with that because when you feel uncomfortable, usually that is a sign that additional work and growth is there, right? The feeling of uncomfortable comes with your next step of understanding that there's like growth and you implementing the growth. So I'm good with you feeling uncomfortable because if you was just like la la la, that means you really don't know that anything is going on. So if you're feeling uncomfortable, I'm good with that because that means that you understand now you need to do some work. But critical thinking, honey, y'all know I went to school for nursing, and so we had to take classes in critical thinking. And if you've never had to take a test that was a critical thinking examination, you don't know what I'm talking about. But please understand that they will give you answers that are all right, but one is the most right. Okay? Understand this, okay? You understand how that's a challenge? Normally you can go through a test, a regular multiple choice, and you can say, these are wrong, so by default, I know this is right. That's not how critical thinking works. Critical thinking makes you exercise which thing is the most correct. And it's evidence-based, and it's important. It's important. That's why when we all went through elementary school, we had that class that taught you how to get on Google, how to go to the library and read a book, how to look at an article, how to tell what was a valid source, and how to verify information. And also it told you that you need to find multiple sources. Y'all remember when we used to have multiple sources to document that the information that we were presenting was accurate? There's a reason for that. And the reason for that is to strengthen your critical thinking skills so that when crazy stuff happens on the interwebs, because crazy things happen on the interwebs, that's where crazy things live, that you are able to discern between things that don't seem right and things that do seem right. And then we also have an information bias too, and things that are presented to us first, we tend to go with that information as being the most true. Things that are in alignment with our previous belief systems are things we tend to believe are more true. And that's fine. But you also have a responsibility to understand for yourself when we're talking about exercising your pillar of your intellectual pillar, I should have said it the other way. When we're talking about exercising your intellectual pillar in regards to your self-care and wellness, that's you being super on the Super Saiyan level of intellectual. And it's always for you to question. Not question because you don't ever believe anybody, but question because it's healthy to ask the question. It's healthy for you to strengthen your understanding of something. And I'm down this rabbit hole with it because we own the social media right now. And this is a lot of times the places y'all get these misinformations from. And y'all like to just click share without just simply going to Google. You could simply go to Google and find out some of the stuff y'all don't share is wrong. But y'all don't do that. So I'm off my soapbox about it. But when we talking about the intellectual pillar, I need you to be responsible for yourself. Because I want you to be out here in these streets talking about it because you know about it. Not just talking about it because old boy says so and you knew him from high school. Okay, some of the people y'all don't even be knowing. They be bots and stuff and y'all just be like, that's facts. It's not. Okay, anyway. And then additionally, what I just said, challenge yourself. So that is part of the challenge. The other part of the challenge is to learn new skills and to also make sure that you're continuing to learn new knowledge. So all of those things are imperative. Remember I said I was going to say that again. You remember? Okay. All of those things are imperative for you to keep exercising. When we're talking about these things, I like to, marry them with other things that you can understand. And you understand that if you have muscles, it don't matter how big that muscle was, if you stop using that muscle, it's going to deteriorate, right? And so it's the exact same thing. If you do not use your critical thinking skills, if you don't challenge yourself to learn new skills, if you don't challenge yourself to take in new knowledge, your ability to be able to do those things is going to be lessened. And I don't want you out here living that life because, they say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I don't believe it. I believe if you maintain your ability to do that, you'll be able to do it for as long as you want to. Okay? So we're going to be great. We ain't going to go with that other stuff. All right. So our next thing on our pillars to self-care and wellness is spiritual. And so really, like, your spiritual belief is really more like kind of the things that set like the guiding, like it's like what guides you. It's like the guiding principles, the guiding beliefs, the guiding values that you have that actually bring meaning to life. And I'll apologize if y'all can hear my baby. She's okay. She just woke up from her nap, so she's probably hungry, and my mother's probably not moving fast enough. So if you if you can hear the baby in the background, just she's okay. But now here she running in the hall now. It's real on here on the TRIBEvibe. We don't do it's all live, so we don't do no post-production. I don't know if y'all seen that episode where the whole, like, the camera and the ring light and everything fell over. It's real out here in these streets. My friend was tiptoeing through the background a couple weeks ago. It's just real. It's real out here in these streets. Okay, let me get back on my focus. So we were talking about the spiritual pillar and being able to use it as a set of guiding beliefs, principles, and values that bring meaning to life. And I just think that's a nice, concise way to kind of sum up what it means. It means different. You have a personal relationship with what you have a personal relationship. So, I'm not on here telling you in what way to exercise your spiritual belief. But, understanding that if you have a set of guiding principles, values, we talked about that the other day, about being able to be anchored in something, right? And so your spirituality is the anchor, right? And that's what you can follow. Like if you're in chaos and you want to be centered and grounded, you can follow back to the anchor of your spirituality because it's the guiding principles, it's your values, it's your belief system that brings meaning to life. So, that's just a good place to be grounded in. And additionally, I think it is major because being grounded in something like that and you're having the full understanding of what it means for you allows you to exercise things like joy, love, forgiveness, compassion, just some of the really big things that I think we all strive to have and, want to be able to get from other people. So, that's major. So you do it in whatever way works for you. Just make sure that you have something because we all need that anchor when things get crazy. When it ain't crazy, you might not need that anchor. But when it gets crazy, you're going to need it. All right. The next thing on our pillars of self-care and wellness is interpersonal relations. So, all right, let me go and break it down. I ain't going to say forever to be. I just said it. Anyway, okay. Interpersonal relations are, it's so crazy to me because I took a whole class on this. I talk about it all the time, and still my brain wants interpersonal relationships to be the relationship you have with yourself. That is not what interpersonal relationships mean. So I'm sorry if I said that out loud. Now it's stuck in your brain too. But interpersonal relationships are your ability to have relationships with other people and relationships with the society around you. Okay? So just to give you a definition of that so you can understand what we're talking about. But it's big. You guys know I talked about healthy and effective communication, and it won't be the first and or the last time I talk about healthy, effective communication, because honey, I don't know how you walk through life if you don't have the ability to effectively communicate with the people that you care about. If you've ever gone through any struggle and you can't say, express, the other person can't understand how you feel, it's just gonna make everything even worse. Molehill into a mountain. So it is imperative. It's imperative that you work on your communication skills. And also, we talked about this the other day too. I can't remember in what context, but we talked about having a healthy support system and making sure that you are surrounded by good people so that you can, when you need those people, because we need people. Just period. There's no other explanation to it. We need people. And so when you need those people, you need to be able to call good people. You don't want to call Debbie Downer or Toxic Tom. Okay. Bad habit Brenda. I'm going to stop. But you don't want to have to call those people. When you need something, actually a friend of mine called me the other day, and I actually pointed out to her. I was like, you could have either not reached out to somebody, or you could have called somebody that wasn't going to say what you needed to hear. And I said, you called me. So I'm glad. I'm really glad that you felt, and understood our relationship enough to know that you could call me and we could have this conversation. So it's big. It's big. And then also intimacy. So I don't know. I can't remember what. I feel like I remembered yesterday and it didn't escape my brain. Somewhere when I was watching something, they were like intimacy and they said, into me I see. And I was like, oh, my mind popped off. Top of my head popped off. And it's really a good, summation of what intimacy is, being able to see the other person and the other person being able to see you. It's huge. And I think just really recently in my adulthood, that I didn't understand that to the level I understand it now. I really am very appreciative of the people I have in my life that really know me. They really see me. They get me. A lot of things don't have to be explained. And if they ever do, it's not a long explanation, right? And that just makes life so much easier. And it's not because we're doppelgangers. I don't tend to hang out with people that think the exact same as me, do the exact same as me, look the exact same. It's not. I like to have a variety of different people around me. But anybody who knows me knows I don't tend to have shallow relationships with people. And so I've always had, wanted to have a deep well worth of, behind my friendships and the people that I choose to keep close. But at the same time, the level of intimacy that I was holding in those relationships wasn't as high as it is now. And after being at this level, I understand, I wish I had been doing this years ago. Because it's just different. It's just different when you're really, vulnerable and open to those people that you really care and love and trust, because it strengthens the love, it strengthens the care, it strengthens the trust, it strengthens all those things. It's a validation of, the understanding between the two of you when you're able to be intimate with each other. So if you ain't got no intimacy, honey, go find somebody to into me, I see, okay? Anyway. All right. And then, like I said, too, interpersonal relationships is also your ability to be able to contribute to society. And you guys know I said this before. When you're deciding how you show up in this world, it is not for other people. Okay? So when you're talking about how do you show up for society, or who are you in the society's lens, scope, right? It's not for other people. That's not what we're talking about. What we're saying is, your full understanding of who you are and what you need to do to be able to walk in your path, understanding that as you are, what's the word? as you are in full understanding of that, and as you are very much aware and in tune with that, you also take into account how are you showing up in society. Not because what does society think of you, but it's just a piece of it. It's just like I said, self-care and wellness can't be separated. They are, they walk in tandem. You can't separate your understanding of how do you show up for the general society and the people around you when you're talking about walking in your path. You don't let it determine what you walk in, but you have to be aware of it. Okay? All right. So, and additionally, to add a little bit of a subgroup underneath that is cultural. And I'm not sure if it is, I'm not sure if this is the same for every culture. I know it is very much a thing for African American culture. I think it specifically comes from the fact that we are displaced people, and that we were cut off from, and so the years of being cut off from the African culture, it makes it feel a little foreign to us. So it is very imperative that when we're talking about those interpersonal relationships, that we are accountable, just like I said, accountable for making sure that you understand that walking in your path has a direct impact on the society and the people around you. Also understanding that when you're focusing on that interpersonal pillar, that you're cognizant of the culture. Okay? And not like because you have to do this because you're Black, not that, but making sure that you are, fully aware of what does that mean? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for the people around you? What do you need to do to strengthen that? Are there things that you see that are there things that you do not see that you would like to see? Maybe you can start to implement them, things like that, asking the deeper questions about it. All right. Okay. All right, so the next one is environmental. And I told y'all the other day, my friends like to call me Mother Earth. And it's true. It's so funny because it's actually like it plays into a lot of things that I think about on a regular basis. I'll be like, ooh, like that's bad for the planet. But at the same time, we kind of live in a society where some things really aren't that much of an option because, there are people making decisions that don't make the decisions based upon the health of the planet. And then by default, we don't necessarily have the options, or the things are, just ridiculously expensive or super duper inconvenient. So, just simple things like I'm in New York now and they actually don't have bags. Like, we don't have plastic bags. California, I know, does that. I'm not sure what other states. We don't have plastic bags. And if you go places and you get a paper bag, you got to pay for it. So some places, let me see, do some places not have bags? I'm not going to say some places don't have bags, but they definitely will make you pay for them. So, when you're thinking about things like that, even something that's not as simple, that's really not a simple thing. But, some of those structural changes like that can help change the tide of things. And so some of the structural changes you can make in your own life can help to protect the environment around you, because you need to be aware of that, because the planet can't take care of us if we don't take care of the planet. Okay. Additionally, because I realized I did not talk about this. Actually, we're talking about it in the next session. So you're just going to have to wait for that one. Okay. All right. Okay. And so then additionally, under the environmental pillar, we also need to talk about things that are in your physical space. And so some of them are like literally environmental things. So like if you're in a house with a person that smokes, maybe you don't smoke, but you're in a house with a person that smokes, or your kids are. If you live somewhere where they like manufacture tires and the soot and stuff is going all into the air, and then the water that they washing the equipment down and that they processing the chemicals with is going into the river, and now it's in your drinking water or the water that you bathe in, like all of these things matter, right? And so sometimes we don't think about them because we just think they just are, but they do, because certain things are, just to give you an example, certain things are like carcinogens, right? And so your exposure to them increases the percentage of risk that you have to develop cancer at some point, right? And so being surrounded by those carcinogens all day, every day, if it's not your choice, that's, if you're making a choice, But a lot of times it's not your choice. A lot of times that's where you're born. That's where where your parents grew up, all your family's at, or that's the only factory that you have to work in the town or whatever. But those things matter. So, as many of those things as you can mitigate, the better. And then also things in your physical space we talked about earlier about having those supportive people around you. Things in your physical space can also encompass not having supportive people around you. And y'all know the word toxic is getting a little played out because everybody want to use toxicity for, to describe things. And some things really are toxic, but everything ain't. But having those people around you that you really know are not good for you, that are a little detrimental to your, any of these things on this list, any other part of your self-care and wellness, if they're detrimental to that and you can limit your interactions with those people, it matters. So, you can't throw away your mama and nothing like that. But if your mama come in and always want to act a fool, then find ways to exercise healthy boundaries so that you ain't always directly hit by the cray-cray. Okay? All right. And so then our last one is financial. Money is huge. And not really money like how much do you make at work, because you can make 6 figures at work and still not have no money, still not have financial literacy, still not understand how to make the money work for you. And shout out to Ronnie from the Players Club when she said make that money, don't let that money make you. You gotta find ways to let your money work for you. Find ways to work within your budget. And when I say your budget, I don't even mean something as simple as like how much money are you putting in your savings account. I mean a realistic understanding of what money comes in and what money comes out. Like more like a balance sheet when you're talking about like financial planning inside of businesses. Understanding what things are coming out are assets and what things are coming out are liabilities, right? Because when you've got money coming out and it's going towards asset, well, that asset is there to make you more money, right? So that's different. The expenditures, the total may look the same, but it's not the same because you put money into something that's making you money. Whereas if you put money in the liabilities and you're going to buy depreciating things, right? They depreciate in value. It's not the same. It's not the same. So, being able to have that like understanding of budgeting and financial literacy and even generational wealth and understanding like what am I doing now currently to set up the people that I love, because it don't make the most sense to just live this life and be like, oh, I'm just about to blow all this money because I made it and my kids or whoever else got to get their own. The wealthy people don't think like that. And so, you want to make sure that you are wealthy in your thought process, right? We talked about the critical thinking skills. You want to be wealthy and wise in those decisions that you're making when it comes to your self-care and wellness. So being able to be, cognizant of the money in a healthy way and also being aware of generational wealth, it's imperative. All right, so we wrapped it up with imperative. Everything's imperative. So, all right, so that's all of them. We're going to run them down real quick again just so you guys can know which ones are which. So our pillars of self-care and wellness are physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, interpersonal, environmental, and financial. That's it. All right, so on our next session, I don't know if we're going to make it to 7. That's right at 7, but it'll be right after this one. Our next session is going to go over tips. See, I already got it wrote down. I don't know if y'all can see, I already got it wrote down. Anyway, our tips on how to exercise some of those things, how to implement some things. And you know how I always talk about working smarter, not harder, how to work smarter, not harder in regards to self-care and wellness. So we're about to get into our meditation. So are you guys ready? If you haven't already hit the share button, please hit it. If you haven't hit the like button, hit that too. Tag your accountability partner. And then I want you to get comfortable. Sit down or lay down. Get your neck and your back straight so you can stay in alignment. And then try to limit your distractions. If you can't limit them, it's okay. Just recognize the distraction, say, hey, distraction, and then come back to the exercise when you can. And then additionally, you cannot do meditation wrong. So if you're here, you've done everything that you need to do. If it feels a little awkward, I encourage you to stick with it because it will get easier. Nothing lasts forever. And it is an incremental growth that accompanies things like mindfulness and meditation. So you may feel a little awkward, but at some point you won't. You'll feel very comfortable. You'll want to do it. And then at some point you'll start feeling out the little tinglies and stuff that you get when you really get to meditating on a regular basis. So, all right, everybody ready? We're about to listen to Netflix, a Headspace Guide to Meditation. And we're going to listen to kind of a generic meditation. So this one isn't specific to self-care and wellness, even though it is specific to self-care and wellness, because meditation is a self-care and wellness tool. Or practice, I guess I should say. So, all right, are you guys ready? Here we go. Let me see what volume Andy's at. Turn it up.
We're going to start with the eyes open and a nice soft focus, just aware of the space around you. And with that soft focus with the eyes, we're going to take a couple of big, deep breaths, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe in, notice how the lungs fill with air, the body expands. As you exhale, just noticing how the body softens as you breathe out. Just one more time, breathing in through the nose. And this time, as you breathe out through the mouth, if you'd like to, just gently closing the eyes. And just take a moment before you do anything else, just to appreciate and enjoy that feeling of having stopped, of having nothing to do, nowhere to go. Notice the feeling of weight, the weight of the body pressing down against the seat or the floor beneath you. And take a moment as well just to notice your surroundings without looking around, just noticing the different sounds, not trying to shut them out, perhaps noticing any resistance towards them, just getting comfortable in that space. And use this opportunity as well, just to notice how the body feels. Very often, we don't really take time to notice how the body feels. So is there a feeling of heaviness or lightness in the body? A sense of restlessness or stillness in the body? And as you bring your attention into the body, just starting to become more aware of that feeling, that movement of breath in the body. So you don't have to breathe in any special way. Just allow the body to do its own thing. Some people feel the movement of breath in their chest, their shoulders. For some it's in the diaphragm, and for some it's in the stomach. If you can't feel anything, any movement, just gently place your hand on your stomach so you can feel that rising and falling sensation. So just settling the mind. Again, thoughts are going to arise, the mind's going to wander. Just notice when the mind's wandered off. And just gently come back to the breath. To begin with, we're just noticing the breath in a very general way. Perhaps starting to notice whether the breaths are long or short, deep or shallow. Then we might find ourselves thinking either about the exercise or other things, just realizing when that's happened, letting those thoughts go and coming back to the breath again. And just to make it a little easier to focus on the breath, we're going to begin to count the breaths as they pass. So as you feel the rising sensation, counting 1, falling sensation 2. Just silently in the mind, then 3, then 4, just up to a count of 10. When you get to 10, you're going to stop and start again at 1. So remember, no effort required. The body knows how to breathe. Not getting involved in any thinking, just allowing the thoughts to come and go. And in those moments when you realize the mind's wandered off, just gently bringing the attention back to the breath again. So we'll just stay with that feeling, that rising and falling sensation, just for a few moments longer. And then just for a moment now, I'd like you to let go of any focus, even of the breath now. And for a few seconds, just allow your mind to do whatever it wants to do. So if it's been wanting to think, you can let it think now. Just allow the mind to do whatever it wants to do. And now just gently bringing the attention back to the body. Just coming back now to that feeling of weight, that feeling of contact against the seat or the floor beneath you. Perhaps noticing the sounds around you again. And whenever you feel ready, you can just gently open your eyes again.
All right, so how's everybody feel? All right, so I'm not rushing you off here, but I'm rushing you off here because I got 10 minutes and I think I can make it. So I love you guys. Have a good evening. If you don't get to stay tuned for the next episode, if you can, we'll be right back to talk about tips on how to exercise some of the things we were just talking about with self-care and wellness. So I love you. Self-love is the best love. You are enough, and have a good rest of your evening. Bye.